There you go. Okay. All right, it's called to order the Board of Library Trustees Committee of the whole meeting for the Arlington Heights Memorial Library for Monday, November 1st, 2021. Excuse me. It's got a number there. Roll call, please.
Here. Trustee Murdoch.
Here.
Trustee Rule is currently not here. Trustee Smart.
Here.
Trustee Samori.
Here.
Trustee Suplet.
Here.
President Sim.
Here. All right, any public comments? I see none. We can move on to then the Illinois Libraries Present. One.
Okay, I would ask our Programs and Exhibits Manager, Jennifer Chaika, to join us to present on Illinois Libraries Present.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Open up this right now. Okay. I'm gonna position this here so I can follow the slides without seeing them. Okay. Maybe I'm gonna forget that. Okay. It's just a little hard to see the slide dance stand, so my apologies. I am really happy to be here tonight. Thank you. I had the chance to meet everybody who was new to the board, who I hadn't yet worked with over the summer. And actually, some of the things that we talked about in the Programs and Exhibits report are very much reflected in this, the next step of what's happening with collaborative programming across libraries. So there is a formal consortium resource sharing model that has been created, which is called Illinois Libraries Present. And I'm going to learn everything about how to make these slides work today. No, am I just too far behind them? Let me just try doing stuff. There we go. Why not? No,
Must be
Is that you, Mike?
Yeah, those are the only work slides for you.
So in the same way you learned about some of the successes of individual events at our summer meeting, when we talked about the programs. Oh, thank you so much, Trustee Suplet. When we talked about the program successes with working with other libraries to share our resources and pool together to bring in bigger speakers together, you can see that these are 3 examples of such collaborative programs that we participated in. They're really good assortment to learn from. Our evening with Ivermex Kendi was, of course, the biggest single event that we hosted here when we had over 700 people from Arlington Heights who attended that and over 6,000 people who attended that across the Illinois libraries that participated. That was really perfect timing. And those of you who know author events know that timing can be everything. It's even possible we could have had them on a different day, in a different month, in a different year, and would have seen that attendance. The Long Shadow was something that the Northbrook Public Library invited us into, and that was a documentary film screening and discussion. And that was trying to carry on the themes of diversity, equity, inclusion, and talking about race through a documentary film screening and director conversation. Very successful, but very different attendance numbers. And we looked at like about 500 people across many libraries. The impact was still there. All of these communities shared this conversation. The fireside chat with Alex Kotlowitz was something that Arlington Heights patrons particularly really enjoyed. We didn't expect to have the highest attendance of all the libraries that participated in it, but we did. And he was just a wonderful speaker. So also, kind of in the nonfiction genre, local, was in conversation with somebody from the Chicago Tribune. All of these different events really helped get our community's feet wet to see what it was like to look at really big, best-selling national speakers in different formats and different scales. So as those events were succeeding, a lot of library staff were talking, how do we keep this momentum going? What's working? What's not working? How do we sustain it? Who wants to participate in making that happen? Who's got the time to make that happen? Myself as a program manager was talking to other programmers. Mike was talking to other directors. It was determined that it was time to start to formalize something. So the analysis was kind of similar across the directors and the programmers. The things that we found that were very valuable were we could collaborate on bigger budget events. We could gather groups of 10 or more to affirm that a topic or a speaker is an important topic. And that also could divert negative attention away from topics that sometimes one library taxpayer may say, hey, Why are you offering this? Well, if 10, 12, 20, 40 libraries think it's an important topic. We've got each other's backs. And we can do more together generally, just sharing resources. When one library is down staff, they can have the event and still offer it to their patrons. When we're down staff, we can do the same. The cons were scheduling. These events were popping up with a bunch of different originators. Sometimes that meant you get 2 invitations back to back and you couldn't take advantage of everything. So we really thought, wouldn't it be better if there was a core group that was scheduling these things? And there was a lack of opportunity for smaller libraries because what was happening was a sheer cost split. The sheer cost split of this author cost this much. So we were each paying this much money to go in. Smaller libraries continually told us, I can't do it. Or if it goes above that threshold of 150, we're out. So we were seeing a consistent message that for a lot of libraries, cost was a big barrier. There was no neutral Zoom license holder. And we've all learned so much about Zoom. But one thing that none of us can control is how expensive it is to throttle your account to get those big audiences in. So it's so silly for many different individual libraries to carry a large account and pay for that when you use it once or twice. And then it's difficult to communicate across multiple libraries and email threads without having kind of an organized body. You know, everything is in an email thread that, you know, you can go just hundreds of emails deep to try to follow the conversation. There isn't a repository or any shared tools where you can find materials. So with that, we did form the steering committee. This is the current steering committee that you're seeing. So myself, Mike thankfully volunteered me because I had already started doing a lot of digging with Rails and other groups by that point. Kate Hall at the Northbrook Public Library, who is also our Illinois Librarian of the Year, so we're very lucky to have her on board for this. Kate Viehoff at the Schaumburg Township District Library, who is in a program and outreach position. Jill Pfeiffer at the Fairview Heights Public Library, who is the director there, and she is our sole Heartland Library representative right now in the steering committee. Ariel Reba, also at Northbrook. Ariel is their studio, I'm sorry, not their studio, they have the beautiful theater manager there. So she's a very perfect back-end production person to have on this group. Shaylin Rodriguez at Shorewood Troy, who joined most recently with Alexandra Spinner at the Oak Park Public Library. So those are the members that have really been working over the last 3 months to kind of fine tune this and get it out the door. And what we did as a group, in addition to surveying and the starting to make connections, was we surveyed all of the libraries that had participated in these. We went beyond just the libraries who had participated, and we shared by listserv, getting out to as many listservs as we could between directors, administrators, programmers, marketers. What are the things that have worked? What have you participated in? What have you learned? What do you want to know? But this is a great capture right here. You can see how many people answered. More than 300 people answered the survey that we sent in late spring. So that was a real indication that there was still strong interest. And you have a question, Greg?
Yeah, I do. What exactly is the survey? I'm a little confused. It was people that were part of the other programs?
Well, it was sent more widely than that. So the survey had about 15 questions, and we did start by asking who was answering, because we felt like that might help us understand who's invested in continuing the work. So for instance, when we see that 31.6% of the respondents were administrators, that was a very good sign that it wasn't just people who couldn't move the work forward that were answering.
Yeah, okay, so you were surveying, what was your universe? Who did you survey? How many libraries? Because 31% or 32% of what?
Well, we had 339 respondents, and that
From
wasn't
where?
from across all listservs that serve Illinois libraries.
Oh,
So there are
wow.
marketing listservs, there are programming listservs, there are outreach listservs, there are director listservs. We put it out in as many ways as we could to all of the different positions to say, hey, we know a lot of you have participated, tell us about it.
How big is that database? How many names?
I don't know that I could tell you how many names, but I could tell you that there were some libraries that had 2 people. So perhaps a director and the programmer both answered.
Well, I guess what I'm looking for is it's 339 out of 500 or 339 out of 2,000.
Well, there's 640 libraries in the state of Illinois, I want to say. So this
So it's
is about a
640
third of the
libraries.
libraries in the
Okay.
state that responded.
So
Okay,
when
very
it's,
good.
so when it's all the libraries, okay,
We tried very hard to get it to every library in the state.
that
Yes.
was the genesis of my question.
Yes, I'm so sorry that, no, it was definitely seen as a very strong response rate.
So about, you said about a third of the
About a
libraries?
third of the
responded?
libraries in the state of Illinois.
Good.
So that was a strong response rate. We learned what types of positions they were in. We felt good about the different experiences that were going into answering the questions from the different points of view that they were answering the questions. And then, of course, one of the questions that we asked was, we asked them questions such as, have you participated in a partnership like this? If you haven't, what has been a barrier to you? Would you be interested in it? How frequently would you be interested in it? What times and days would you be interested in offering the programs? So collected a lot of different pieces of information. And one of those was content. We kind of asked people what types of programs they wanted, because we did want to have some direction from our potential membership once we started this work. So these were the top scoring types of programs that people at different libraries in different positions said were important to them. That is social justice issues in EDI, best-selling fiction authors, best-selling nonfiction authors, and well-known speakers, which is a general category, but that's okay. It does leave us a lot of room in interpreting, but it also gives us a lot of direction to know that EDI was important, because as you noticed, all three of the examples I showed you definitely had EDI threads in the conversations they offered.
Sorry, can I ask another question about,
Yes.
so did this, for example, go out to the librarian at, or, you know, the Loyola University Library, or is it only community
It's a great question.
libraries?
The 640 that I'm guessing now, probably incorrectly, is public libraries. And trustee Meadow, if you know the exact number, please do weigh in, because I think it's between 630 and 640. Trustee Supler.
And so, Jennifer, how many options did I have to answer this question? Was it just the 4 and I could answer as many of the 4 as I want, or was it broader than that?
It was the 4 and then open-ended. We had a
One
whole analysis of the open-ended,
Okay,
which was actually very, very telling. And that's where, again, we saw that there were very significant differences in what smaller libraries were looking for and what larger libraries were looking for. Because if you say well-known speaker to a library that has no program budget, they may be very, very excited to have an author that costs $1,000 that to us has been very tangible and accessible over many years. So there's just a lot of, there's a lot of interpretation that is happening right now with the program planning. And when I show you my next slide, you will see we came up with a mission statement, which again keeps things broad, but gave us some direction. With knowing that the interest was there, we decided that yes, we are going to continue this work. We see the need, we want to fill it. Illinois Libraries Present provides high quality online events at equitable prices for participating member libraries of all sizes and budgets. We connect communities and audiences across the state through shared event experiences. So it gives us growing room, it gives us some room to interpret what types of events we're offering, but we did feel very comfortable that we had a lot of learning between all of our libraries, and that these would be quality events, and that if we pooled our money, they would be a variety of different scales and interests. Our goals that we set were to provide high quality profile events, to reduce the costs and maximize the reach, to allow access for all libraries as equitably as possible, and to define clear and distinct roles. And that's where it comes again into the event production piece being a really big resource savings with a model like this. Not every single library has to invest a staff person to be on camera and a staff person to be behind camera. If we have 100+ libraries participating, many can just offer the programs to their membership, their patrons, their customers. So,
I think your slide back. That's
Oh.
the goals.
I'm so sorry. There's the goals again. I only read the bullet pointed bright yellow, but there are fuller sentences for each one. So sorry, it's a little awkward to
Little
text,
awkward,
but my
yeah.
apologies. But yes, there's the goals in full.
Let me,
And we do have a website, so all of this is accessible at the website. And we can, send that following the meeting. You'll see the URL at the end. We can share these slides.
And if you're getting to this, I apologize if I'm jumping ahead. Okay, the last one, to define clear and distinct roles of committees and participating libraries. So obviously, one of the big issues, it's great, pulling it all together, so all libraries throughout the state, regardless of their size, can benefit. And I'm looking, the ones that have operating budgets under 250, 312, they're $40 is the cost. So how do you make the distinct roles? Is it based on their size? Is it based on how much they're paying in, or how is that figured out?
So the distinct roles are primarily in the additional committees, and I did not provide a list of those, but I can tell you all about the additional committees, and that is that the programming is being created by a programming committee. Each of the committees has been open for applications and interest, and we've used those same listservs that we use to share the word and say, hey, who wants to fill out the survey? We've gone back to those listservs to say, hey, we're a thing. We've used the Rails listserv, we've used Heartland listservs, we've used Rails member meetings, we've used all of these different ways that we know we can get in front of people to say, hey, we're really doing this. And we want you on the committees. The committees are an additional piece that is really being treated with an EDI lens. We're really looking for a broad cross-section of experiences on each committee. We want a leader-learner model where we have experienced people who are able to teach people in programming skills, working with contracts, working with large authors. We want our marketing to function the same way on the marketing committee. We want people who have great slick production and great media contacts to work with staff at libraries who don't have those things. We want our event production committee to have the same. We definitely need some super, super strong people there to make sure the events are as high production as we promised, but we still want people learning that along the way. We're looking for different representations on those committees, and we're looking for different budget levels across the libraries to be represented on each of those committees. And there is, for trustee Suplet, a data and numbers committee.
Are each of probably people from the steering committee presenting a similar presentation to their library board?
In a lot of cases, the directors are bringing it right to the board. So the slides that I'm showing are slides that we made available to everybody with the intergovernmental agreement that you saw. I modified them a little bit just because I've had a lot more stake in the game for a longer period of time. So I wanted to tell you things about the survey that other libraries weren't maybe hearing at their IGA presentation. But yes, every single library is in the same boat of having the board be aware of and learn about and sign the agreement. Yes.
So, thank you for that. So just in thinking if a community member were to want to know, like, why are we, diverting resources to this? What you're explaining, quite detailed, is that we are looking to be able to host these larger events and to be able to collaborate with other libraries, and this does help reduce costs and increase efficiency and really be able to do this. So it is a benefit to be able to.
I
do that,
believe that all of that is
Okay.
true. I believe that it's a benefit to the library world because we looked across states. We didn't only talk to people in Illinois. We talked to IMLS, we talked to other groups, and nobody has created a model for this yet. Even after we rolled out our model, we learned one consortium kind of positioning and pitching something differently, similar but different for a grant. There's also an ALA related project that's coming up that's similar but different. So we're actually a little bit ahead of it because we were already rolling out membership interest to say, join us, as we were learning about these other groups that are prioritizing access to the humanities post-COVID. And everybody's coming from the same place of capitalizing on the fact that we can do things together now that we never did together because our physical borders across communities would make it inequitable for libraries to share in the cost, but have one library have it in their local theater and 10 other libraries have to drive to that theater.
I
Yes.
just think it would be helpful, if we give you the chance to finish your presentation and then we.
Okay, that's fine. I don't mind doing it that way. Okay, so then, yeah, it's just sticking. So what we are presenting to you tonight is the pilot program, which you would have seen in your memo. The idea of the 6-month pilot really came from our work with Rails, because Rails was involved in our conversations going back to February. They were the first group that we went to say, hey, we've got these big events that keep happening, and do you have a Zoom license? So we approached them first to talk to them about whether they could give us access to a Zoom license. And then it became, this is something good, this is something new, this is something innovative, this is something we should spend some more time on, and let's research it. They are in a position that financially, they couldn't launch us, but they are supporting our billing. And so assessing what needed to go into them helping launch this project, they recommended the 6-month pilot. And we talked about a lot of different membership models. We talked about a lot of different fee structures. We ran numbers so many ways, looking at all of those budgets across 600 plus libraries. And what we came up with was, of course, what you see here and what is in your memo. So just even seeing that reference of understanding how many libraries in the state are at the point that they would be paying $40, that their budgets are that small comparative to ours. One thing that I can share regarding these numbers is where I said we've had high attendance at some of the events, the libraries that participated in these other budget categories don't see the same high attendance. There's a lot of correlation between who's got money, who's got resources, who's got the marketing, who's brought their community together, what the community size is sometimes, of course, corresponds to this. So, when we presented this to all of the different libraries over the last few months, it's kind of been hilarious because one of the biggest questions we're getting from other libraries, how big is the Zoom license? It's the first thing they jump to and they want to know. And we've kind of tried to say, that's what we're responsible for. We're telling you we're taking care of that. We're not going to hide it from you, but if we have a 5,000 capacity Zoom license and we need to throttle it to 10,000, that's the decision we'll make when we're watching the registration reports. If we have a 5,000 capacity Zoom license and we see registration at 5,500 and we know no-show rates are going to be a consideration, we won't pay the extra money to throttle it. So those are decisions we're going to be making critically on the back end all the time, and that's where we are talking about saving resources. Trustee Gallo, to your earlier question, in a similar program situation where we have 12 libraries on email, you could spend 4 days debating whether or not you want to throttle your registration to a certain number, or whether you're expecting this no-show rate or that no-show rate. We're trying to really work from the data that's been collected from all the events to date so far. So yeah, so we are lucky to be one of the higher resource libraries, as each of you knows in this room. For $1,150, that is less than we paid toward the Ibram Kendi event in the end of 2020. So I feel like we're in a very good position. This fits into our program budget very well. If we took advantage of 3 of the 6 to 12 programs, and I am leading the program committee and can tell you it's going to be 9 programs. We know that now since these slides were created. But if we took advantage of 3 of the 9, we'd be getting our money's worth. If we take advantage of all 9, it's going to be a bargain for us. Yes, Trustee Zick.
Are those, it says pilot costs, so are those just for the 6 months of operation?
Yes, that is for the 6 months of operation. So there have been some decisions made about what will happen following that 6 months. The 6 months was kind of intentional to take us through to the beginning of SRP, knowing that's a very different cycle for everybody else in libraries, knowing that's not our highest attendance months at programs, and knowing that we might need to take a break to recalibrate and apply what we've learned from the pilot. So we are most likely at this point offering the January through June programming, taking July and August, and then relaunching with maybe a school year model for our first year.
So if you're going to be, I apologize, John, you're actually right, but I can't help myself. if you're gonna be doing 9 events, if this program is gonna be doing 9 events a year, and let's say our library takes advantage of all 9 of those events. But we're also gonna be having our own events that we're gonna be planning. Is there gonna be any overload, on the public, because we're just throwing too much at them?
Yeah, I think it's a great consideration, and I think it's one that every library is asking themselves right now. Because it depends on, to a lot of libraries, it depends on their newsletter cycle. Some libraries will draw hard lines. If we can't get it in the newsletter, we don't do anything with it. Some libraries don't care about the newsletter at all. Some libraries don't produce a newsletter. Everybody's working with totally different resources and ideas of what fit looks like. Some libraries will have a book discussion and an author event on the same night. I would probably lead my team to make sure we are not offering 2 things that are too similar, which is always our goal. So if we think that 2 of our programs on any given night are going to draw the same audience, we try not to offer them on the same night or in the virtual landscape, make sure one of them is being recorded. So no, if we have to say no to something, our one book is a great example. Other communities have events that big. If something that ILP offers falls on the night of your big thing, you don't have to participate in it. What we'll hope is that each library who participates really takes the time at the end to say, what did I spend? What does that mean relative to my program budget at my library? And was it worth it for number of events? Was it worth it for the number of people that came out? Everybody will have different data. They're kind of slicing and dicing at the end.
These pilot fees, is this per event?
No,
It's
all
a
of,
flat fee.
as many events as you want are
For that
included in that
much.
flat fee. And believe me, I was the person that held on to we should do the pay-per program model because programmers are going to prefer that control. And the more ways we ran the numbers, this became the obvious equalizer for the smaller libraries. Thank you for the questions, though. So yeah, the benefits I think I've kind of talked through as we've gone. We're giving access to high-quality events to our library community. That's pretty true of everybody. We are looking forward to streamlined communication through one organization. This does not mean a single library could not decide on their own to host an event and say, hey, does anybody want to jump in on sharing costs? People are still welcome to do that. And then that'll come back to those questions that Trustee Zick asked, is this too many events for us? We are at a point where when we're launching, though, we're launching a little later than we would have liked because there was so much work with the lawyer and getting the IGA together and doing a lot of the things that we hope will make it a sustainable model. But when we launch our spring programming, it's going to be launched with so much notice that people should be very happy to have it when they get it. Easy online sign up for patrons. So that will be a single point of registration via Zoom. That's been different for the different events that I showed you as examples. It's much more efficient when you have one single point of registration and you can monitor the numbers. So that's something that we know we will be doing. We're also open to a different tool if we're getting close to the end of the pilot and our production committee says, hey, this is an online portal that's even better. We'll think about that. The tech support is something that through our event production committee. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, the event data and reports that I promised earlier, yes, those are part of what you're getting. The opportunities for staff to leave from all positions, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. Oh, but then third, fourth.
Yes.
Okay, I thought you were on another page.
And the opportunity to lead nationally, as I mentioned, we couldn't find anybody doing anything too similar. And we won't be surprised if other library communities across different states come to us and look to us to see how we did this. Thanks, Mike. So yeah, we're really at the end. What's next? We've already filled out the membership interest form. Mike and I have submitted that on behalf of Arlington Heights Memorial Library. As a library who will participate in Illinois Library Presents, we hope. We will have multiple contacts with them. We're collecting multiple contacts from every library. So who is the library director? Who is the contact for events? Who is the contact for billing? So we've submitted all of our contacts for all of the different roles within the organization. The intergovernmental agreement that you've been presented with is, of course, created as Northbrook Public Library, doing business as Illinois Library Presents, so to speak. That is because we could have gotten lost in the chicken and egg situation of we have no money, how do we start to plan events? And we were really there for a few months trying to figure out where the money goes if we apply for grants. And so there were a few grant applications. Northbrook Public Library became the originator of those grant applications. And we are very lucky that we're receiving $37,000 from the Illinois State Library. And then, yeah, we will be billed in January, which coincides very nicely with our calendar year. And as I mentioned, fits very well within our program budget. If it does turn out that we launch an additional piece following the pilot, we will assess what that looks like as far as budget fit and what we get out of it then.
Okay, I got a
Trustee
question.
Smart.
Hi.
Hi.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Wonderful to see. My concern is with the agreement, to be quite honest. This is fabulous. This is a long time coming. Good work by you. I know this has been something you've been working hard. Has Roger reviewed this agreement?
Not yet. So,
Okay. My concern is the Northbrook Park Public Library Park, to be quite honest with you. They basically own this. And I have a real problem with that. Okay, not that I don't like Kate Hall, and I know she's, but I just have a little problem in the fact that early in your presentation, we talked about Rails, and I know that Rails is doing the billing portion of this. I just have a real problem at the end of the day. Is Northbrook Public Library gonna pull rank? They already have 2 people serving on the committee, which I thought was a bit odd. I just am concerned about this agreement, I have to be quite honest with you. I would have liked this, I would have not had hesitation if they weren't in there as basically owning it. And that's my problem.
Who's holding the money?
Well, Northbrook Public Library,
Rails is billing. They're doing the billing.
and everything will go back into the Northbrook Public Library Fund. The reason you see a sample contract is because if we're not working with an agent or a publisher who presents us a contract, then we would use Northbrook Public Library's contract, although that's not been the case so far. Everybody that we're working with does
That's my
have their own
concern.
contract.
And I assume it would be an
But yes.
independent separate fund that Northbrook Library would have.
I wish I had better answers to those questions as far as how it is that they've set it up. I do know that I can let you know that it was not Kate Hall's first choice. It definitely became if we want to get it done and we want to get it out, I know I can get my board to approve. I believe it's $72,000 was the operating cost for the pilot period that she asked her board to approve.
Did Rails give a reason why they wouldn't?
Rails,
um,
they're in the middle of, my understanding, and this was through a variety of meetings. We started with Dee and Monica, then Dan became a person who was working on the meetings with us, and Dan is the membership coordinator, might be his title. Deirdre is the executive director, and Monica is the assistant director of Rails. So a variety of different Rails staff throughout the time that we were working with them. It seems like they're going through some changes where they're evaluating all of their contracts for support with a lot of different organizations right now. They are also going down a finance manager and looking for a new finance manager. So I think the timing was the issue. They felt like they had the liquidity to do it and probably could have at a different time figured out how to move money to this project, but it really was a timing issue from what I understood in meetings with them.
How come did we reach out to the Illinois Library Association on this?
I don't remember, somebody was supposed to have scheduled a meeting with Diane Foot at ILA. And I know Cindy Robinson has been involved just in helping us get the word out through ILA. But I don't think that they were asked directly for funding, no.
So can I just add one more question, because I mean, this really does concern me. So at the end of the pilot, would Northbrook Public Library maybe be out of the contract, and then there would be maybe a more neutral contract?
I think so, because some of the other things that have come up as far as questions from members when libraries are expressing interest as membership is like, what if it doesn't cost as much as we think it's going to cost? And what if there's leftover money? And we are going to continue to pursue grants. So there's also an ALA grant that's available right now that we've started working with the Public Program Office on to make sure that we are eligible as an organization that's just getting started. So they know enough about us. They're encouraging our application. So we will continue to seek money, and we're even open to sponsorship. So if it comes to, and we need a Demco presents this author with ILP, there's going to be a Demco presents this author with ILP. You know, we're very open to different funding sources. So yes, my guess is that at the end of the 6-month period, we'll be in a great position to not have everything be funneled through our Public Library. Yes,
Jennifer, this is fabulous. It just really shows the depth and the understanding of yourself and your colleagues from across this area to be able to see the future and to act on it independently with your own initiative. And I have a great deal of trust and faith in you and the group with whom you're working. Because it's clear that you have a very good working relationship with one another. The communication is fantastic. I understand Trustee Smart's concerns, but again, as you pointed out, this is a 6-month pilot. And the only way to learn is to get out there and do it. And from a project management perspective, clearly you've got that background, as do your colleagues. After 6 months, you reassess where you were and you revisit it and you come back.
yeah,
But for me, I feel it's absolutely essential that we give you the opportunity to continue in your efforts to pursue this pilot in the manner that you see as fit, and that we support you in every way we can, with the understanding that, yes, this is a pilot and we'll revisit it and follow your good advice.
I appreciate that. That was very thoughtful, and thank you for sharing all of that. Yes,
Okay, so this is a really cool project, and it's a fantastic thing, especially, everybody working together and helping the smaller libraries, help lift them up and do all that kind of stuff. But I actually am gonna echo a bit of what Trustee Smart said. Trustee Selby, you are correct that you kind of have to get running, and there's only a 6-month type of thing. But where the money goes sometimes and exactly what's going on, I'll have to say some of the questions that Trustee Mel asked you, about who's holding the money and where it's going and stuff like that. I think we should find out the answers to those. We just have to know exactly where it is and where it's going to right now and how it's going to be worked out.
absolutely.
And
Well, it's
also,
going to Northbrook.
okay, what are the controls? So what are the controls now? And then I think we need to find out what's going on there.
Okay.
And by the way, we're not saying anything to stop, by the way, and that's not the intention at all, because obviously you're going forward and it's a fantastic thing, but let's just kind of get a little bit of a better handle. And what is the plan? What if this succeeds? What does that group see as the plan going forward? Is it always going to be under Northbrook, or are you going to set up an individual organization where it's all going to be set, whether it's not Rails or whether it's not ILA or associated with whatever. It's something that's it's unique and different. If that's the plan, I personally would like to know that, at least what the plan is going
Yes.
forward. And then as far as the committee that you showed right at the beginning, and yeah, Northbrook's got 2 people on that. I noticed that too. I don't remember the names of all the libraries on there, but were there anybody from the smaller libraries? It seemed like it was all just,
That was Jill.
unless
So
I was
Jill-
missing it.
Jill Pfeiffer at Fairview Heights. She is doing the majority of our outreach to Heartland libraries. They are the only Heartland of all the rest of the.
Okay.
various
What about
libraries.
FEPM? I mean, she's not on the steering committee, but they're a member.
Oh, then I have Lisa from FNCAM on the program committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is.
So it's the rest are suburbs. I
Yes.
mean, Sherwood Troy is near Joliet, but I guess it's a suburb.
Yeah, thank
and
you,
then
Trustee
there
Miller. I
is,
forgot that fuller list was there. So the
um,
fuller list is programming committee and steering committee members
Right.
together. They were the 2 committees that existed at the time of that memo.
These are the members right now, which is going to $10,225 will be collected from those 12 libraries for this pilot project.
And as far as the membership interest forms and what we're collecting through IGAs for board meetings that have already happened, we have 116 libraries committed right now. And the total of those libraries, as far as the equitable pricing model and what each of them would bring to the table is, I want to say 38.5 or around 38.5 in membership fees with those that are committed right now. And that is including Arlington Heights as a member.
I just, well, you'll learn a lot from the pilot,
Yes.
but,
absolutely.
when you get into the finances, it can be pretty dry. I'm thinking, now it's coming back to me, my media mall. And at one time, was that through NSLS? And then Skip, somebody, took, and then he had his own and it was under there and, that was, that was, there was a lot of
It
consternation.
was messy. very
It was messy. It was an ebook consortium.
messy. Yeah.
And we were, Gilbourne was the largest member, we eventually pulled out because, and this is what's critical. Because we paid the money, but we had no say in what was purchased
That's my-
and no say in what, what we paid. And, so, and it wasn't a huge amount, but still, we thought, So that's what's important about this is that, people have the voices, and I think it's gonna be a real challenge of downstate libraries, which are
Yes.
very, especially if you're getting into social justice speakers and Chicago area. So I think that the pilot, I think it would be really good to get a real variety of speakers to see what goes and what's effective.
I'm originally from downstate Illinois, so I grew up with that and
Well, I know people in Fairview, I have staff who have relatives in Fairview Heights, I said, what's it like down there? Oh, very conservative, very conservative.
Steel country.
So, the money is always the sticky issue. And I don't, is my media well, it's not called that anymore.
Is that ECC? No? Because we spoke with ECC.
No, my media mall, that was the ebook consortium, and is it still around?
No, I don't think so.
Mike, do you know ECC, which, I thought ECC was an ebook consortium or an electronic consortium of some sort. That was one of the earliest groups that we kind of brought into a meeting to say,
Yeah.
like, what was it like getting your group started? We even discussed, and there was a lot of persuasion to try to partner with Laconi, and I'm leading the Laconi group right now as the
Oh.
president of the governing board, but Laconi is trying really hard to rebrand and to refocus. And we are.
I'd like to know where the money of Laconi is going. The last time I saw a treasurer's report, it blew my mind. The money they had amassed and they were charging for programs. I thought, what the heck's going? I used to be president of Laconi many years ago. And, so I'm glad to hear they're rebranding and getting, I said, we don't give them that much money, but they've just been amassing it. We're talking $30,000, I think.
Well, we're higher than that now because we spent almost nothing doing virtual programming.
Yeah.
Virtual programming costs were lower, and we're really reevaluating why we're taking money from members for programs. and what's absolutely necessary.
Exactly.
Yeah, we were getting to the point where we bought sandwiches just so we could tell people to pay for the programs.
Oh, Laconi used to be really cool.
Trustee Summary.
Yes, I was just gonna say that, I think this is fabulous, combining resources, and clearly the libraries that are interested in this have a real interest, and certainly a lot of them don't have enough money to do the kind of programming that we do. I attended several of these events. I also have gone lately to other like Highland Park Library events that aren't associated with Arlington Heights, but if, a non-card holder can go. I just think it's the more opportunity people have to be exposed to different things. And I was thinking, and I'm sure in your programming, there's lots of different issues, but people around here need to know downstate stuff. And I'm hoping perhaps there might be a children's
Yes.
or teen, I guess diversity to me is a lot of things.
Yes.
Age, race, sexual orientation, where you live in the state. Illinois is a big state, and yes, this is more suburban libraries. I get that, but maybe it can grow. And I guess for a 6-month pilot, it seems fabulous because, just what you were able to do during when the physical library was closed is pretty awesome. So I think it's fabulous. And, I think we've expressed concerns about the finances. So whoever is in charge of that really needs to show where every penny goes. And I think that's
I
important.
just think, I'm for this 100%. I just think two things have to happen before it comes to the board next meeting. One, Roger needs to review the agreement. And two, I think we probably need to have something in writing, either an addendum or something from Northbrook, exactly how all this is gonna, is it gonna go to a separate fund? little fiduciary kind of control kind of thing.
Yep.
Because Carol is right, we did have a lot of egg on our face a few years ago, and it was very, very ugly.
With my medium all.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, Arlington Heights was in it for a while. He was pulled out before Gail Borden
Yeah,
did.
So I just think, just to nail that part for us from a fiduciary standpoint would be nice, and I'm not saying there needs to be some big huge book, just a one page something, just so we can show our public that we are aware that the money's going to be taken care of and we're good stewards. But I think this is a great idea, but I think those two things before the next meeting would be great, okay?
Excellent.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Is everybody else and the rest of the board good at that? Is there anything else that they would add, to that too? Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, I'm sorry I took so much of your time, but thank
No,
you.
thank you.
No, it was
Good.
excellent feedback.
Very
This is
good
a good time.
presentation, Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry I was standing on top of you, Carol. for the
No problem.
Okay,
Sick my head.
let's move on to item 2, revisions to policy 6.001 outreach services.
Okay, I'm bringing you proposed changes to our outreach services policy. And the most significant change to this is the 45% rule for entities outside of Arlington Heights to be eligible for library services. Currently, it is the enrollment or client group has to comprise 45% or more Arlington Heights residents. And if you take a look at the list on page 2 and 3, you'll see some of these schools that are falling below that 45% threshold, but there's partners and they do contain a lot of Arlington Heights residents. There's also a number of other organizations outside of Arlington Heights that do not meet that 45% that we may partner or work with for various reasons. And so the 45% rule, we feel we'd like to have some discussion about that and change the policy to include as part of the consideration, the percentage, but also some of the other things that might be key factors, such as partnership opportunities, supporting the library's vision, value, and priorities, benefit to the Arlington Heights Library or the community, and establish relationship or partnership. And Trixie Dantas is with us tonight as our manager of youth services, and is the one that has really been promoting these changes to this policy.
Trustees, any comments or questions?
I thought, first of all, I cannot believe all these grade schools that don't have libraries. I was very surprised by that. And I know that we have, a pilot program with St. Viator and St. Peter. I guess I think I agree with these changes. I think 45% might not be the right thing to look at right now. I guess when I was looking at this, I'm like, look at the grade schools that have, close to 100 Arlington Heights students. And those schools need help. And while I was shocked that Prospect High School does not have a library, I also recognize that high school students know how to use this library or their community library, as well as so much research that's available online. So I guess I really like the idea of perhaps looking at some of the grade schools that have 100, look at even middle school in Parker, 170 Arlington Heights students and no library.
How do we know if they don't have a library?
Yeah, can you clarify that, Trixie?
Yeah,
Yeah, like I mean, I know Windsor for sure has a library and they're listed here.
You
so.
mean, we give library services. That's what that means.
Yes.
Oh, so that you're like going to do presentations?
No,
No, we're going to do presentations, providing school resource bags, so like items from our collection, for borrowing for their students or for specific curriculum. It could even be going to a library card sign-up event, like that would be something that we could consider.
Yeah, so
so they have, Prospect High School has a library.
but they just don't get,
Not our services.
got it.
Yeah. Are they limited, you say here?
That's a great example because they should be getting their services from the Mount Prospect line.
Mostly
So,
Arlington Heights people go to Prospect High School.
well,
Not
which, if I could
majority.
finish. So Mike, what would be that distinction? I mean, if we're serving ours and they're serving theirs, how is that affecting the students in this case? Or maybe you want to. How are the students adversely affected if we're functioning based upon geographic boundaries?
So I think Prospect is a really great example. It's one of the examples I often use when I talk about this, because there are so many families that are walking distance to this library that would, their students would be attending Prospect. And, a great example and something that we've received so much feedback from parents is we, for summer reading, required summer reading, we carry high school extra copies for the students, assuming that they're gonna check out the book and read it for the required summer reading. And we've never carried Prospects before. So year after year, we would get complaints from local parents because they're paying tax dollars for this library and we didn't have extra copies. But we are providing extra copies for like Burling Meadows High School, which was within that threshold. So we actually ended up buying copies.
That's a problem?
But
I'm kidding.
but
Mike
it's
didn't want
it's
that.
outside of the policy. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, where I don't want to be going against the policy. We're just trying to serve the students. And many years ago, before I started working here, we did serve Prospect. And when they fell below that enrollment, we stopped serving them. And the librarian there actually has brought it up to me multiple times because, I think that she feels like as collaborators and as partners, the way that it happened and us just completely stopping services was.
So just one more, the opposite side of that is, so what's the downside of serving all of them without any consideration as to geographic boundaries? I mean, what we're looking at is a bunch of schools. Yeah, I find it hard to argue that there should be some arbitrary rule as to why we wouldn't be servicing students of these schools.
Right, so it's balancing our resources
Yeah.
versus, like number of students, but we wanted to look at more than just that percentage, there's
Right.
there's other things to consider.
Trixie, haven't we partnered though in the past with like Prospect Library on things, right?
Prospect Public Library?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, so we do that, John, just so you know. So that the students are getting the same message.
Right.
It's not like they're giving a message and we're getting a message. We get together, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So for Hersey, which is located within
Right.
Arlington Heights and we partner with Prospect Heights Library to provide services there. And we might with alternate doing different hands-on activities during lunch. And we coordinate with that public library staff to make sure that we're, balancing between us as there are students that are part of both of those.
Oh, thank you. Just so I understand that, so for Hersey, 53.1% are from Arlington Heights, so according, currently. So then that would be, it meets that 45% threshold. So then, but we're still, they're 46.9, right? I feel right with that 1%, that are from other areas. So I see what Trustee Sepulveda was saying is it seems kind of like we're still serving, kids. So but that is correct, right? So there are that other percentage is just they're not in Arlington Heights.
Exactly, they're not Arlington Heights residents.
Residents, got it.
Since Hersey is located in Arlington Heights, we would serve them.
No matter what. Okay.
Did you have some, Carol? Okay, so I got a couple things. The overriding thing is that we want to service every person who lives in Arlington Heights, regardless of where they go to school. We want to be able to give them. We want to make sure that they're given the same thing. Now, that's something you had said. Partnering with Prospect. I would hope that as we go through these type of things and whatever that village is, or that library that the rest of the students go to, we're partnering with them. But as I read through these things, these examples that you would give and the one that stuck out to me, obviously, it was a little ahead of percentage, is the Elmhurst one where it said, it must be 50%. do we know what they do with those that fall under 50%?
I don't know, but I can ask the youth services librarian in there.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious how other libraries approach this, because I think the thing we've always got to be a little bit careful of is we want to service everybody in Arlington Heights, but we also have to make sure that we're doing it in a prudent way too. I mean, summer reading program, we think that every school should be the same, if they're in 214, it'd be the same thing for all of them. That would be nice. So it would make things a lot more efficient if you go through there. So I would just kind of like to know, what's going on there. You also have on the cover page here, it said staff recommended provide areas of entities outside the village boundaries at the discretion of the executive director. So if it falls, does that mean if it falls underneath that 45%, then it has to come to the executive director to make a decision on what we're going to do?
No, any of them would really, we would eliminate that 45%.
Yeah,
That's what.
If you look at the draft, second to last page.
45%'s gone.
Okay, so that leads me up to the next thought is, and if I miss this, let me know, but it doesn't say that in here, that the executive director has a discretion. And I'm guessing you're thinking that, well, that's just the overall meaning of the policy now. But it doesn't, it should probably say something in there that now it has, they're decided at the discretion of the executive director.
It does,
Yes,
the last sentence.
The next sentence.
Where?
Village boundaries will be determined by library.
Library administration.
Okay,
Executive, what are we looking at? I'm looking at the last page.
Yeah.
Second to last page.
second to last page. By library administration, okay.
Right there at the top.
Which is the term that we determined in previous policies to use instead of.
Executive director. All right, everybody's comfortable with that.
These key factors are outlined here, percentage of Arlington Heights residents, partnership opportunities, benefit for the library and community, and established relationship with partnership. So it does, we are going to look at all of those factors. When we make these decisions, but
Yeah.
the 45% just seems so restrictive.
Do you want it to say executive director?
Well, it says it on here that it's going to one person, and this statement in here by library administration, it means it can be a whole group of people, type of thing.
Or it could be any.
But we did that the other,
Or it
with
could be
the
any-
other, I can't remember what policy it was.
Legal
but we
policy.
purposely changed it in case Mike was gone. I think it was actually for like rental space. We purposely changed it because if Mike was on vacation or Mike was gone,
Didn't
that
we,
somebody else could make that decision.
didn't we do something that we said executive director or?
Library, that's true, but I don't necessarily think that applies to this outreach services policy because this is something that's going to have, it's longitudinal. It's not at the moment.
Yeah,
I mean,
unless you guys,
I'm good with it being determined by the executive director.
Just put the last line back in. It was at the very bottom of the last, like the original policy. We
Right.
Xed it out.
consistent with the library,
Right.
sure, yeah. Just leave
Put
that
that
right
back
in.
in.
And then,
Yeah.
and then, or if you want to put it at the top, just to make it
Yeah.
consistent with the
Or
statement.
consistent.
Yeah.
Put it- Just put that back in.
Yeah.
A little outreach service.
You wanted to say consistent with the library's vision and values, or do you want to identify those key factors?
Oh, I think you should identify those key factors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I think also at the top of it, where it says the level of outreach services provided to entities outside village boundaries will be determined by, probably, I mean, I guess technically you are library administration, but if we're saying executive director specifically, at the bottom, it should probably correlate.
Just incorporated in there.
But yeah, I mean, I can tell you as a mother of, well, former mother, my daughter graduated from Prospect, and we're like, I think 6 blocks away, 10 blocks away, I don't know. I can walk here easier than I can walk to Prospect High School. She's like, they don't have the book that I'm supposed to read, Mom. We figured it out.
No, the mission is fine. Just dot all the i's, cross all the t's, and make sure we understand exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Mhm.
That was my whole point. All right, very good. Anything else, trustees? Good. All right, Trixie, thank you very much. All right, let's move on to item 3, the Illinois, IFLAR, Illinois Public Library per capita grant.
Okay, so it's that time of year again where we submit our application for the per capita grant. Attached to this memo is the per capita grant application, which we will be bringing back in December for review, once we have it filled out. But between now and then, our job is to read this book in its entirety. So you have homework tonight, sorry. So all trustees and myself are required to read serving our public 4.0.
You know, this is such a cop out on the state library's part. You know, it used to be, you know, some specific things that you answer. Now it's, well, you know, if you, yeah, fill in the, just write an essay if you haven't been completing the course. This is, I looked at this week when it came. I haven't looked at this before, and I think this is such a cop out. You know, and it's the same thing every year now.
Right, yeah.
They used to have different ones each year.
Yeah, you focus on different things.
Right, yeah. This is,
There's always a time. When do we have to have that done by?
By
January.
December, the committee, the whole meeting will bring this back for review, the application for review. Then I believe we vote on it in December, and it'll be submitted before January.
January 15th, I think it's due. Yeah.
Didn't we always have links or something like that, or?
You said what?
Were we given links, like certain things that we had to look at?
We only had a couple chapters, yes.
Yeah, well, read the whole book now, Greg.
So if anyone does not have this book, please let us know.
I think I do. Check.
But, you know,
That's 4.0.
but Mike, I mean, you will be going through and determining if
I'm assuming they do.
if we're meeting it or not, and then we're probably meeting 99.9% of everything,
Yes,
so.
right.
This
What's
is-
our obligation to you, Mike? To tell you that we read it?
Yeah, to read it, John.
We have to fill this out ourselves. Can you fill this out?
No.
Sleep
No.
on it and then send an email.
Yeah, we will fill out this application.
Whatever you're up.
And we'll bring you a filled out application in December for your review.
And so
All you have to
then he
do
can
is-
just check that the trustees reviewed it.
Yeah.
Is there a check mark for
I don't
that?
know what I'm done with.
It's really a fairly quick read usually, but it's still one of those things.
And if you don't have yours, let me know and I can pass one out too.
Yeah,
Now,
it's probably in my house somewhere. The question is where.
the Arlington Heights amount is probably gonna go down a little bit because the population went down, right?
Probably slightly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is it online, Mike?
But the book, I believe so. But this isn't a one, right?
I'm not sure.
Oh, the book,
I think it is.
Usually is.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, you know,
Through ILA.
they had a,
Yeah, they
What,
have
did you get the
a.
book?
yeah, flash drive that
Oh,
goes
yeah.
with it, yeah. That's what it's, you can,
Yeah, maybe not, because you do have to buy it,
Yeah.
so it probably isn't.
We'll see if we have the original copy, and if so, we'll send it to you.
yeah,
Now, even though the population was down slightly, the multiplication factor.
well, that went up last year though. I think it was $1.47.
Right,
It
so
went
that
up
means
last year.
significant difference, so. Yeah, well, we should be okay.
It won't be that much.
Okay, anything else on that?
That's it.
Okay, and others, so we've got Snoopy and the Red Baron exhibit coming, which I'm looking forward to.
It's gonna be cute.
And congratulations to Liz Schreiner on first place in the pumpkin. Performing a really cool pumpkin.
That was good.
It was very cool.
I thought number 2 was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is.
Whoever
No,
did
no,
the
yeah.
sweetgrass.
Mary Weber.
There were some really great.
I thought that was.
They were all very
It was
good.
very cool. Okay, any other? Okay, can we have a motion to go into closed session, please?
I'll move that we go into closed session in accordance with 5 LCS 120/2C1 for the purposes of discussing personnel issues.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are going to
Hi, ma'am. No, I'm
Hang on, why is this going on? Okay, this is the Arlington Heights Memorial Library Board of Trustees Committee of the Whole. We are going back into open session. Quick roll call, please.
John Suplet,
Amy Samari, Andy Rule,
Carol Meadow,
Sarah Gala,
Debbie Smart.
Rick Driscoll.
Greg Zick.
Jennifer Robin.
Okay, we got you. Okay, the only thing we want to talk about, Mike, is the employee survey that we got coming up. When's the date for that?
We are working on the contract right now, planning for first quarter next year.
Okay. What is the earliest that we can get that going?
It's in the budget for next year, so if we want to stick with what's budgeted. January, and I'd like to talk to Lisa about that because she's working on the logistics of it,
Okay,
but we could get it going, I would think January, February next year.
is there any issue? Let's take another step quick back. This is a third party, right? Correct? That's performing the survey, correct? Okay. I'll make sure we got that. Any issue with really having a beginning right at the beginning of January?
I don't think so. I don't know how much setup time is involved, but I know she's already started that.
Okay,
So I can clarify with her and get back to you.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, okay. I think that was it. Trustees, anything else we need to add to that right now? Okay, that's fine. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
we have to approve.
Oh, shoot, I always forget that. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes for the closed session meeting, please?
and we approved the minutes for the closed section in accordance with 5 ILCS 122 for the purpose of personnel issues.
Do a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, that will go. Okay, now can we have a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.